Welcome to the Chairman's Perspective Podcast. Chairman.
You are listening to the Chairman's Perspective. I'm your chairman, Van Turner Jr., and my co-host, Lee Eric Smith of the Tri-State Defender, is here with me.
Man, good to be back on the show with you today, Chairman. And we've got a great show lined up for you today. Going to take a deep dive into the county budget with none other than Commissioner Eddie Jones, who represents not only District 11, but serves as the budget chairman. So we're going to take a deep dive into that, kind of learn about the inner workings of the Shelby County budget. All kinds of great stuff coming up on the show today.
And for those who are listening, you will want to hear whether or not we're going to do a tax increase or not. Will we increase your taxes or not?
Oh, you definitely
I know you want to hear
stick
that.
around for that. Absolutely.
I know you want to hear for this show. So stick around. We'll be right back on the Chairman's Perspective, powered by the Kazukian Network.
The Chairman's Perspective on the Kazukian Network.
Keeping it real, right, and funky.
Is this an opportunity that we can seize and express interest from the governor and the state to act on behalf of young people in Shelby County? There are stories that we don't want to tell because they will piss some folks off, make some folk mad.
Funky politics on the Kazukian Network.
Kazukian! The Chairman's Perspective on the Kazukian Network.
And welcome back to the Chairman's Perspective, powered by the Kazukian Network. I am Lee Eric Smith in the co-pilot seat next to the host of the show, the chairman, Mr. Van Turner Jr. Glad to be on the show with you again.
Oh, man, this is wonderful, and thank you, Lee. We have a special show today. We have none other than Budget Chairman Eddie Jones. He is my partner as far as Hickory Hill, as his district and my district meet at Hickory Hill. He's District 11 County Commissioner, and I'm District 12 on the County Commission. So it's always a pleasure anytime I'm in the presence of my friend. We go all the way back to the early days when we were on the Democratic Party together, talking crazy to each other.
Welcome to the show, Commissioner Jones.
Well, thank you. I am glad to be here. I don't even want to comment on what the chairman just stated about our early days, and we did have some fun times back then, but it is truly an honor to be here to share information with you guys.
Tell our listeners, for our listeners who don't know you and aren't familiar with your background, tell them a little bit about yourself.
How far back do you want to go?
I hear we can go all the way back to high school, but not all the way through high school.
Okay. So, coming out of high school, I started off working with the police department. So I worked in the old city jail as a detention specialist. And I left there and went to 201 Poplar. And okay. I was a corrections deputy. When I left there, I went to MPD as a patrol officer. And through my time on the police department, I ended up on the tactical unit. I was the only African-American police officer over in that unit, elite unit at that time. So I went on from there into business. Mm-hmm. I did that, and then I left the police department and went into business, and came back into city government. So I currently work in code enforcement, and I'm a supervisor. So I'm dealing with blight every day. Now I'm elected as a commissioner, so I work in both governments. I used to tell Mayor Luxor, I said, look, I work in both governments. I work for one mayor, and the other one works for me. And so, because over on the county side, it takes 7 votes from the commissioners to get anything done. So that's where I am. I'm on the commission now. Prior to being elected, I did a lot of community work. Okay. Out in the community, working with people, helping them with their concerns, their problems, to get things done. And then I got elected. And so that's who I am. And my district combines 5 neighborhoods, Whitehaven, Oak Haven, Fox Meadows, Parkway Village, and a western part of Hickory Hill.
Excellent. You're listening to the Chairman's Perspective, powered by the Kadzukian Network. One of the things I'm always curious about is, I know that you just mentioned you had a long career in law enforcement. How did that kind of inform your platform as an elected official? I'm always curious how people's occupation kind of informs or influences how they might legislate.
I got to see it from both sides, as a citizen, as a law enforcement officer. So I could very easily find that common ground between both.
And speaking of common ground, this is your second year serving as budget chair, Commissioner Jones. And last year we passed a unanimous budget, which doesn't happen on every occasion. But you were able to get that done last year. What are the prospects of getting a unanimous budget passed this year?
Well, I think if we utilize the same model that we used last year, I think we can get there. A lot of what took place, and you know this, in our early years, the budget was brought to us in reverse.
Right.
And so rather than to bring us a balanced budget on the front end, we allowed them to bring us their assumptions of what they think the budget would look like. And then we had the hearings, the budget amendments. And then once all of that took place, then it was put back to the administration to bring back a balanced budget. But when they brought it before, it says, oh, if you do this here, we won't have a balanced budget. And so I reversed that process to say, no, you do your assumptions. We'll go through the hearings and we'll tell you everything or approve everything that needs to be added. Once it's added, then you come back with a balanced budget. And that's how we got that budget passed with unanimously.
Now, the 4 years that we served together from the term 2014 to 2018, the majority of that time we had a surplus, as you can recall. Now, because we've adjusted the tax rate, things may be a little more tight this upcoming budget year. What are your thoughts?
Looking at the budget last year and what was presented to the commission, basically we had a faulty forecast.
Right.
That said, hey, don't worry about it. We can drop it, but you're still going to have this much. Well, the tax revenues are not coming in that way. And so when I tell you it is a super, super tight budget, it's a super tight budget. And it was based off of numbers that forecast us almost 30 million more this year than we collected last year. That's not the case.
That's quite a different outcome than what we thought we would be receiving. But I remain positive. I'm confident in your ability to work this budget and get it to where we need to have it. We are now in the midst of new people all around county government. We have new charter officers. We have 8 new commissioners, and everybody is coming from different angles because it's their first budget session, whereas we've been through 4 sessions. And so I think you and I are kind of in a similar boat. We're having to kind of withstand all the newness to make sure that we can fit it into something that can work for everyone. And I'm looking forward to this budget season, and I'm glad that you're serving your second year as budget chair. And so I think that as we continue to explore this budget, we'll be right back.
Yeah, we're gonna put a pin in it right there and take a quick break. Keep listening. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on the Chairman's Perspective, powered by Kadzukian.
The Chairman's Perspective on the Kadzukian Network.
Jazz, America's own original musical art form. When did it start? Who were and are some of the major players? How do you distinguish what kind of jazz you're listening to? We talk about the great and lesser known artists, songs and tunes, the instruments, and the social impact jazz has had on world culture since its beginning at the start of the 20th century.
Riffin' on jazz on the Kazookian Network. Kazookian!
Hi, I'm Shelby County Commissioner Eddie Jones. I represent District 11, and you're listening to the Chairman's Perspective, powered by the Kazookian Network.
We're back on the Chairman's Perspective. This is Van Turner. I'm here with Lee Eric Smith.
What's happening?
And we are being joined today by Budget Chairman Eddie Jones, and we're having a great conversation regarding a forecast of the upcoming budget. As you recall, we spoke to Mayor Lee Harris last time, and he had a couple of thoughts on the budget, and now we're getting the budget chair's thoughts on the budget. And I think you had a burning question you wanted to ask, Lee. What was that question?
Well, I was just always curious because we always know that constituents are looking for. They always want more services, and at the same time, I know we just mentioned in the last segment that the pie is a little bit smaller. But I'm just kind of wondering. Offline, we talked a little bit about how that's going to be made up by generating more revenue. Is that correct?
That's correct. The county budget is really based off of property tax collections. There are other things that we get, but the probably 2/3 of it comes from that revenue source. So if we don't do some things as it relates to economic development until we can put more properties back on the tax roll, that increases the amount of revenue that government can have to do all of those things in those communities that our citizens are asking for. This particular year is going to be a tight year. Here's why I say that. You got all these new clerks. You got all 8 new commissioners. You got a new mayor. And so what was left behind, now they're having to feed through that. And now they see, hey, wait a minute. This is not the pretty picture that we thought we was walking into, because the revenues are just not there. And so earlier I said it came from a faulty forecast of what was projected to be there. And so that's not so. So what I would like to say is this. Let's get through this year. This is the first year. And I think we can get through that if we talk to the clerks and says, hey, everything you guys wanted can't happen this year. We can fix some of it. What priorities will be the relevant marker that decides that. And so that's on the clerks. And then the commissions, we had a lot. That's going to have to be cut as well. It's just not enough there to give everybody what they want and to bring us a balanced budget without a tax increase. We kind of know where those dollars will be. And so there's going to have to be some cuts here and there as it relates to that. Now, I've seen the commissioner's requests, increase requests. I've seen the clerk's increase requests. I have not seen the mayor's increase request. So I don't know what all the mayor may want to do.
Okay.
And so, but it's different buckets of monies that sits in government. So you could have capital improvement dollars. That doesn't affect the general fund. Those are basically bond indebtedness that we do for capital projects. And so we pay that out through our annual debt service payment. And so that debt service payment is roughly around about $145 million annually.
You're listening to the Chairman's Perspective, powered by the Kazookian Network.
Commissioner Jones, so at the end of the day, these are the confines that we're working within, a tax rate increase to fund everything that's requested, or no tax increase and we don't fund everything that's requested. So are we going to have a tax increase this year?
I don't think so. I think we can get there if we can come together. The commissioners can decide to say, hey, let's make some cuts in the increase request, and we can get there. But in order to do that, we got to see everything on the table. So you've seen the commission. I've seen the clerks. So now I need to see the mayors.
Right.
And so all of that needs to be brought to the commission, and then we can make that decision, and we could do that without a tax increase.
I get that question all the time. Are we going to raise taxes? Are we going to raise taxes? And it's a big concern for a lot of people. But we have to make sure that we also are providing the services. So as you stated, Commissioner Jones, you can't be sick of waking up every morning and there's a new homicide and then complain that, you know, we need more public safety. We need more programs for the youth. We need more jobs to stop the crime. And how are we going to pay for it if we don't raise taxes? So, you know, what about that? So we're saying we don't want to raise taxes, but what about needs for public safety, infrastructure, jobs? And you need taxes to pay for all of those. So how are we going to be able to do those things without raising taxes?
It's going to be very difficult to do that. And until you can put more properties back on the tax roll, then we will be stuck in a flat space without any way to grow. And so then we would have to begin to prioritize to say, if you don't want the tax increases, then we're going to have to do something. It could come down to if the budgets go down to a point where you might have to lay people off. And that's not something that I want to see happen. I just believe that there may need to be an increase if you want to put yourself in a position, but I think it needs to be a controlled increase. If you're going to do that, it has to be controlled to say that if we're going to do this increase, then it only affects this.
Right.
And we will deal with this. And so the best way to do it is to deal with it through economic development. Because once again, I'll keep saying that the more properties you put back on the tax roll, the more revenue that comes in to be able to address your points, Chairman.
And we got to put a pin in it. There's so much good information. We're going to have you back on the show at some time here in the near future to kind of go through all of this stuff. But in the meantime, I want to thank Commissioner Eddie Jones for being on the show representing District 11. Hold it right there. We'll be right back on the Chairman's Perspective, powered by Kadzukian. Don't go away.
Chairman. The Chairman's Perspective on the Kadzukian Network.
R&R on Sports is proud to be on Sirius XM.
So what's R&R stand for?
Real talk and relevant sports issues.
It's racial and relative. We're brothers from the South. We can relate.
R&R on Sports on the Kadzukian Network. The Chairman's Perspective on the Kadzukian Network.
Welcome back to the Chairman's Perspective. I am your chairman, Van Turner Jr., here with my co-host,
Lee Eric Smith, and what a great show that was. We covered a whole bunch on Mr. Chairman.
We sure did, and I guess the ruling was that we will not have a tax rate increase this year on your Shelby County property taxes, according to our budget chair, Eddie Jones.
And we also learned, I guess, that, we can't do everything.
Yeah, we can't do everything.
Everything on the people asked for, that the commissioners asked for on behalf of their constituents. Good stuff. Not saying it's bad stuff, but you can't do it all at once, at least until, as Mr. Jones said, until more properties are added back to the tax base. He sees that as the way we get to have more revenue to do more here in the county. So
Absolutely. And as we heard, Chairman Jones is serving as the budget chair for the second term. He passed a unanimous budget last year, so hopefully we'll have that same luck this year. And so I'm very supportive of what Chairman Jones is doing, and I'm looking forward to this budget season. And we thank you for listening to The Chairman's Perspective, powered by the Kazukian Network, and catch us on the next show.
The Chairman's Perspective Podcast. Executive producer, Shelby County Commission's Van Turner. Hosted by Lee Eric Smith. Recorded at Kazukian Studios. Directed, produced, and distributed by Kazukian.